Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my tutorial for Chapter 1 of the Vincent Django for Beginners book. And this video has been created for those of you who are using Windows. Okay, so if I click through on this ebook, I'm going to come up to Chapter 1, which is where I want to be. And most things in the chapter we do slightly differently with our tool set, the one that we're using in IS439. And so I just wanted to walk you through how to get that work done with our tool set. Okay. Um, so uh, let's see. The first thing he talks about here is working at the command line. And certainly a lot of developers work at the command line, and they do that on Windows and Mac OS and Linux. Um, but it's kind of slow going for most. And so we're not going to do most of our work at the command line. But if we are going to do it, I'll show you how to do it with our tool set. Okay. So let's go to the next page here. Um, he's kind of talking about the shell and shell commands. Okay, so get this off of here. Here we are, and I'm showing you my Windows 11 virtual machine. And there are a lot of ways to get a command line prompt. And one that I showed you probably earlier when you were setting up your machine for Anaconda and I told you to save a link right here. So uh, if there is this thing called Anaconda prompt, and that's where I'm going to recommend that you work. Okay, but there are other alternatives. Okay, if we click on the start icon and go to the upper right and all apps, and we go to the drop down for Anaconda 364-bit, you can see that there are um, two possible shells or command line prompts that we could use. There's one that uses PowerShell, and there's one that uses the plain old command line prompt. And I must confess that I am not a PowerShell person. And I was trying to use the PowerShell tools just a couple of minutes ago, trying to do some of these things from this Vincent chapter 1, and I was having trouble. And so what I've decided to do is my work on Windows is going to be using this Anaconda prompt and not this Anaconda PowerShell prompt. Usually you can just run these prompts as they are. There are times when you're trying to install software that you have to remember to start them as administrator, which you would do by right clicking and then more and then run as administrator. But what we had done for this one in an earlier tutorial is we had done a right click, more, and we had done a pin to taskbar. So this is the one we want, Anaconda prompt for Anaconda 3. Okay, so now I'm just going to go down here and start that. And the reason that we want to use the Anaconda prompt is that we want to make sure that the Windows environment is recognizing Anaconda uh, when we're at the command line. And here, by the fact that we see the word base in parens at the beginning of the command line prompt, we know that Anaconda is properly installed and running, and the base virtual environment is activated. Okay? And from here, we can do a lot of things, right? So if we go back to the kind of things that he shows um, in the book, he does a who am I? Uh, he does a hello world. Uh, we'll do a who am I? Okay, so we'll just type who am I, and it'll tell us who we are. Okay, and so this is a command line prompt, and just the kind of thing he's asking for, and that's how we would do it with our tool set. Okay, um, and he tells us how to change the path and all these kind of things. And if you don't already know how to do these kind of things, then it's probably good to learn how to do them, how to change the path, how to make directories, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Um, and so the next thing he comes to is install Python 3 on Windows. Now, we have already installed our Python 3. Okay. So ours is already done. How do we know that? Well, let's just, at the command line, let's type Python. And it starts up, oh, this is interesting, 3.9.15. So this is not the Python that we're looking for. Oh, you know why? Because we haven't activated the virtual environment that I really want. So we are here running the Python interpreter, and we're at this console prompt. This is often called the REPL, read, evaluate, print loop. Okay, and the way to quit this is with uh, quit parens, enter, and we quit that. Okay, so how will we activate the virtual environment that we've created? Okay, well, first of all, how do we know what virtual environments have been created? Well, let's type in conda env for environments list. Okay, and it hesitates a bit, but here it shows us, oh, that we have three environments. We have that base one, which is the default. We have the IS439 Python course, which I have everybody create. Even the people who are in my Django course, it just gives you a little more practice. And then we have the IS439 Django course, and we should have created those in prior tutorial videos. So if you haven't done that, well, this is a place to stop and go back and do that. Okay. Okay, so how do we activate a particular virtual environment? Well, we do this. We type in conda activate and then the name of the virtual env. So E4 trainer Django course, not coursey, course. And you can see how it's changed our prompt, so we can see that we are using IS439 Django course. And now, if we type in Python, we'll get the Python we're expecting. We were expecting a 3.10, and in this case, we're as far as 3.10.9. Oh, so that's great. That's just what we wanted. Okay. Uh, and another way to get out of the REPL, there's another function you could call called exit, and that's got parens as well. And that got us out of the REPL. Okay, so that's looking good. Um, now, uh, so we know that the Python that we wanted is installed, and the reason it is installed is that we've activated the Conda virtual env core called E439 Django course. Okay, all right, that looks good. All right, so let's go through the rest of chapter one, see what else we need to take care of. Install Python 3 on my Mac. Well, we're not doing that here. Python interactive mode, okay, it was talking about how we could work at the uh, at the Python uh, console there, which is the REPL. And again, we type in Python, and that's going to run until we quit. Okay. Now it starts to talk about virtual environments here, and in this book, he has the reader using a another virtual environment tool called venv, and we are not using that in our course. Why? Uh, One is that we're taking this opportunity to work with Anaconda. Anaconda gets a lot of use in data science, and so if you're going to be doing data science, I think you're going to be creating your VNs with Anaconda. So I want you to get practice with that. And two, as a practical matter, um, the VM architecture puts all the files for the virtual environment in your PyCharm project. And that just makes the projects too fat, okay? Whereas the Anaconda approach to this is that the virtual environment files are in a separate set of directories, and they don't overly fatten up our PyCharm project, and that's what works for this course where you're going to zip up your project and submit it to Canvas. And it's going to be big enough as it is. We don't want to bloat the zip file with a bunch of Python package files that are part of the virtual environment. Okay, so don't use if VM, use this uh, Anaconda virtual environment tool that I've been guiding you to all along. Installing Django. Okay, do we need to install Django? No, we don't. We already have it installed, but we're going to want to check that it's actually there. Okay. And in this book, he's asking for Django 4.0. At this point in the spring semester of 2023, Django 4.1 is out and stable. So we're just going to be using Django 4.1. So in the current semester, uh, we're using Python 3.10 and Django 4.1. And in some future semester, I'll have in the instructions for whatever activity you're doing, what version of Python we're looking for and what version of Django we're looking for. Okay, so we should already have Django installed by virtue of having activated that virtual env. So let's look at this. Uh, uh, we can look at the packages in a Conda virtual environment uh, with the Conda command line command Conda list. Okay, and here we go. So, for instance, we can see our Python is 3.10.9. That's great. And they're in alphabetical order. Our Django is 4.1. That's just what we wanted. Okay, so even though we're not specifically installing it here, it is installed, and that's what we wanted to demonstrate to ourselves. Okay, so that's been taken care of. Okay. Now he wants us to start our first Django project. Okay, and he wants us to do that at the command line. And here's the first time that you'll get exposed to the issue that not everybody uses the exact same directory structure for their Django projects. There are a couple of camps, okay? Um, and we're going to see that they have some things in common, and we're going to see that they have some things that are different. Um, so I'm I'm going to show you another camp, okay, and then I'm going to show you the Vincent camp. And to do it the Vincent way, we are going to have to create the project at the command line. Okay, but uh, stick with me here. Okay, so we're going to crank up PyCharm, PyCharm Professional. Okay, and so we're going to get that started. And on Windows, the default seems to be for um, PyCharm that when you start it up, that it opens the last project that it had open. Interestingly, that's not the default on Mac OS. But and I'm usually over on Mac OS, so when I open this, I'm expecting to see some kind of choose your project dialog, and I'm getting some kind of stale project I have no interest in. But to pick the project that I want, I'm going to go up to the menu, click on File, New Project. Okay. And I'm going to show you what happens when you use PyCharm Professional to create a new Django project. You get a directory structure for the project that's pretty traditional. Okay, so a lot of people have used this over the years. It's pretty close to the structure that we're going to be using when we get to the EasyU tutorial in a couple, 3 weeks. Okay, but it's not the structure that's used in the Vincent book. Okay, so let's just say we have a Django project. All right. And that he wants to put this in a PyCharm projects subdirectory in my home directory, and he wants to call it Django project. And I think I'll just call it first test Django project. Okay, I'll call it something like that. Okay, and then I have to pick the interpreter that we're going to use. Because we're using a virtual environment, we're not going to click the top radio button. We're going to click the bottom one. Okay, and it's offering us E439 Python course. Well, that's not what we want. We take the drop down. It doesn't have E for a trainer Django course here yet, okay, even though it's available on the machine. So I'm going to slide over and click Add Interpreter, and then pick Add Local Interpreter. And here's where I get into this dialog they're seeing here. This is a new way to do this. This was just it just came out. I'm now in mid-January 2023. I think this came out maybe late November 2023. So it hasn't been working like this for long. On the left side, in the left panel, pick Conda environment. Okay. And then it says it's detecting Conda, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to go over and click the button Load Environments. At least in theory, it can go find the virtual envs. Okay. and then I'm picking over here, use existing environment. You can create a new one here, but that's just not the way that we do it in this course. So use an existing environment, okay? Take the drop down. E for Trainer Django courses right here. So I just want to pick that and click OK. Okay. And it's scanning installed packages, doing all that kind of stuff. The rest of the things, template language, Django, templates folder, templates, um, application name. We're not creating an initial Django app, so we don't have anything there. Enable Django admin. That's all stuff we want. So we create, and we say, yeah, use this window. All right. And there we go. Okay, so we actually have a Django project. Um, the name of the project is the name of this directory up here in the navigation panel. First test Django project. Interestingly, right underneath it, it has another directory of the same name. First test Django project. So this is one style of how to configure the directories in your Django project, and we have a directory that sits under the project directory, and oh, it's been called a lot of things. It's been called a configuration directory. I think in some of my tutorials for EasyU, I call it a metadata directory. It holds files that apply to the whole Django project and not just one Django application. Okay, and we've decided here to call it the same name as the Django project. Does everybody do that? No, not everybody does that. Do a lot of people do it? Yeah, they do. Does Vincent do it? No. Will we do it when we work on EasyU? Yes, we will do it. Okay. Why? Well, because when I created EasyU, I was following the Pinkham text, and that's what Pinkham does. Okay. So one of the reasons that this is a more advanced course is that right out of the blocks that you're seeing that there are more than a handful of things in Django in which not all the practitioners follow the same practices. Okay. And so you've got to pick the ones that you're going to follow. So while we're doing this work in the Vincent book, we're going to follow the way that he configures the project, and then when we move on to EasyU, we'll follow the way that I do it. And then when you get off on your own, you're going to have to pick the way that you're going to do it. Okay, they all work. Okay, now uh, if we go back to our book, okay, after we create the project, uh, we start up the development server, okay, and then we see a page. This is a kind of a splash page. Oh, it's called the Django welcome page. So configuring the project like this, how do we get to the Django welcome page? Okay, well, let's do this. If we go up to the menu, we can click on Tools, okay? And then there's this thing called Run Manage.py task. And that should take a second, but that pops up a window down at the bottom. And a lot of the things we do when we're working at in developing Django, we're running this tool that is written in Python. It's called manage.py. .py. It's a Python program that's in our project. It's generated by Django when we create a Django project. In fact, there it is, manage.py. And in PyCharm Professional, we're lucky enough that we have a window that we can start up that will run manage.py, and any command that we type into here, it feeds it to manage.py. So the first thing that we learn how to do is run the development server, which we do by giving manage.py the command run server, all one word, and we do enter, and then it prompts us for a port or address, and we don't have one. We're going to take the default, we do enter again. Okay, and it gives it starts up the server and it gives us the URL, so we click through on that, and we see the Django welcome page, and you can see that it's Django 4.1. So that's all looking good, and that's pretty much all Vincent does in chapter 1, I think. Oh, then he goes on to talk about text editors and working with Git. I'm not going to get into Git this early in the course. I've invited everybody to get started with Git. You're certainly welcome to begin using Git as soon as you're interested and ready, but I'm not quite ready to give it airtime. And that's the end. Okay. Okay. So that's how you start up a project that you created by not running something at the command line, but by telling PyCharm Professional that you wanted a new Django project. The good thing about asking a PyCharm Professional to do it is that it's highly automated and it has a lot of convenience. The bad thing is you don't get control over the names of the directories. Okay. So let's do this. Let's close the browser. Okay. The server's still running. Okay. All right. How do you stop the server? Well, when you read in the textbook and you read the documentation, it says that you stop a Django server by entering what would be on Windows a Control C. Now, I can hit Control C all day in this window and it's not listening, okay? Because PyCharm Professional is intercepting that Control C and it's ignoring it. How do you stop it in this window? Click the red stop button and it stops. Okay, so you start the server with a run server, all one word, enter, enter. Okay, and then you stop it by clicking on this. All right. There we go. Now, here's the thing. Historically, working on Windows, when you want to open up this manage.py task, it blew up. Okay. Finally, I'm doing a tutorial for this where everything seems to work. But if I close this and say, how did I start that manage.py thing? Well, again, I went up to Tools, Run Manage.py task. And for a couple of years in a row, I would run that and it just would break. Now, it didn't pop that up, but if you look down here, there is a tab for it down at the bottom. So that's it. It's running fine on my machine. I'm expecting it to run fine on your machine. But what if it didn't? Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you how to adapt. Okay. Uh, most developers who, a lot of, well, any developer who's not doing Django development on PyCharm doesn't have that little window. Okay, it's a convenience. So what do? Well, they work in a command line terminal. So if you look down here along the bottom, there is a place to start a terminal. So we click on that and it starts the terminal. Okay, but it's all red and it's complaining. Well, that was a real disappointment to me. So the thing that's usually broken, the thing that I prefer to use, that manage.pytask, that's no longer broken. That's great. But the terminal is, at least on my machine. Okay, how do I fix that? Well, the problem seems to be that we are starting one of these PowerShell um, command terminals. If you look at the prompt, this is a PS. This is the PowerShell. Okay. I'm not a PowerShell guy, so if that's not working, it's not a big loss to me. If you're a PowerShell person, that might seem like a loss to you. Okay, I'm going to show you how to tell it to not run PowerShell, how to run just the typical old style command line prompt here. Okay, so we're going to close this and we're going to go up to File, Settings. Okay, and let's go down to Tools. Okay, and there's an entry for terminal. Okay, and in application settings, it has a shell path, and it's currently set to PowerShell, and that doesn't seem to be working right now. So take the drop down and pick a command exe, cmd.exe. Okay, and now click OK. All right. Now I forget whether we have to restart PyCharm to get this to work. Let's see. Let's just go down to terminal and see if it's instantly changed. It's not. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close PyCharm Professional. Okay, and then I'm going to start it up again. And I think that's going to resolve the issue. The next time it starts up, it sees our preference to run the regular command line terminal. Okay, so as I told you, it's sticky. It goes right back to the project that we had before. Okay, and if we go down here and click on um, the tab for terminal, here it is. Okay, this is the terminal. Okay, and you can see that it has activated our uh, proper Anaconda virtual env E4 Trainer Django course. Okay, so now how would we do things that rely on manage.py, like run the development server? Well, we do the same thing, we just have to type in more of the command. Okay, so we type in Python space manage.py space, and then the command, the manage.py command that we want to run server, enter. And there you go. It runs. Okay, and now we click on this. And we can see that we get the welcome page and we're running Django 4.1 and everything is happy. All right. So let's close this. Okay, now how do you stop the development server when you're in this terminal thing? Well, I think it tells you to use Control Break. Control Break on our keyboard on Windows is Control C. So Control C, and that's it. So you have to be clicked into the terminal window and you use Control C. There's no red stop button here. Okay. So this is a little bit less convenient because instead of just typing in run server, we had to type in the full Python manage.py run server. But it's just a little bit more typing work. And there are some people who prefer this. They'd rather be working at the terminal than that manage.py screen. Uh, I've showed you how to make them both work. You can feel free to use either one. Okay. Um, there you go. That's it. All right. Are we done yet? No, we're not quite done yet. All right. So, um, you remember that I told you that oh, let's go back and look. Let's open up that project again. Okay. Yeah, let's open it up. Here it comes. Okay. So you'll see here that that uh, the project um, the when you think of what is your PyCharm, sorry, what is your Django project or your PyCharm project? It's just the directory that holds the project. This is top level directory. Okay, and we have one directory inside that again you could call your project directory. You could call it your uh, configuration directory. I used to call it the metadata directory. I think I made that one up myself. Okay. And quite a few people name this interior directory the same thing as the project as a whole. I think it's a confusing practice, but we did it. Um, hundreds and hundreds of people did it for many, many years. Okay. Um, and then we're also going to find out as we add Django apps, we're also going to have a sub directory for each of the Django apps. We haven't created a Django app yet, so we don't have that. Okay. By contrast, the directory structure that Vincent prefers is this interior directory is called Django project. Now, is that a better choice? I think it is. Okay. Now, I've seen people call it yet other things like config. Um, so I think that this idea that you don't want um, oh, another thing you'll see in tutorials quite often is they'll have that interior, kind of configuration directory. They'll call it my site. Now, my site I think is a pretty bad name because um, the site that you're trying to build is in your Django app, okay, and that's not in that directory at all. Okay, so I think that my site is a bad choice. I think that parroting the name of the enclosing project is probably uh, a better choice than my site, but not great. Uh, again, I've seen config. I think that's pretty good. In this Django project, it's good too. I don't know if there are other people who follow him. I mean, there could be a whole movement of people who are following him and they're calling this Django project. I don't know. But let's follow the directions and do it his way at the command line. If you want to control what this interior directory is called, then you have to do it at the command line. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close PyCharm Professional. Okay, and I'm back here at the command line. Okay, and let's do. I forgot how you clear it. Do we just type clear? Is it CLS? Yeah, it's CLS in Windows. That's how we clear the console. Okay, so we've cleared that. Let's list what's in our directory, dir, okay, and we can see uh, at the next level we've got something called PyCharm projects. Okay, you just have to decide where your projects are going to be on your computer. So I'm just going to say cd PyCharm projects, and I'm going to do a dir there. And you can see here, first 2023 PyCharm project. I think I did that in a prior test. Probably the one I just did for you, first test Django project. Okay. And so now I'm ready to go. Um, so I'm in the directory in which I want to put my project. Okay, I want mine to go into PyCharm projects. You can put yours wherever you want. Okay, my uh, my virtual env or is E439 Django course. Okay, now what if you don't have that virtual env? Well, let's find that. Okay, again, um, let's say conda activate base. That's just the base one. And we'll activate that, and that says base. And what if you don't remember what your virtual envs are called? Conda env list. And then you'd look, oh, E for trainer Django course, of course. So it's conda activate E for trainer Django course. Okay, so we've got the right virtual env, okay, which means we've got Django 4.1 installed. We're in the directory in which we want to create our project, okay, and um, now we have to. I'm going to pause to make sure I do this the right way the first time. Wouldn't you prefer that? I think you would. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. And what I'm realizing here is when I look at what Vincent does in chapter one, he kind of gets us almost to where I want us to go, but he doesn't exactly get us there. So under PyCharm projects, we should have the name of our project. Okay. Uh, and so here's what we should do. We should do an MD for make directory. Okay. And let's just call something like, I call this something like my first Django project. Okay. We call that. So we make that directory. Okay. Now if we do a dir, a dir, you can see it's right there. Okay. Now, when we want to generate the Django project structure underneath, we want to generate it underneath our top level project directory. And we don't want the name of the project to be the same as that interior directory. So here's how we do it. We say cd change directory my first Django project. Okay, so there it is. And then here's where we go to the code that he's showing here. Uh, we put in Django admin space start project space Django project um, dot. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what would happen if I just copied that and I pasted it into my command line with a control V. It didn't work. I don't know why. My paste doesn't seem to work. Oh, I know why. It's not in my virtual machine. That's why. It's on my Mac. So Django -admin space start project, and then Django underscore project. That's going to be the name of that interior directory, and then a space, and then a dot, a period, and then enter. Okay, so in my first Django project, let's do a dir, and you can see that inside we've got a Django project, which has some files in it, and uh, manage.py, it generates that for our project. Yeah, well, okay, that looks good. All right, so let's take a look at that. Okay, now uh, I recommend that even if we generate the project at the command line like we just did, okay, and when we're working with the Vincent book, I think that's what we should do so that we get to control the project name, and we can also have that configuration directory inside called Django project. Even when we do that, we should still do our work in the project in PyCharm. So I'm just going to start up PyCharm here. Okay, and you see, um, oh, and again, this is sticky, right? This is the last project I had up. So file, open, okay, and then I don't know why it wants to go there, but it does want to go there. So if I go to C, um, documents and settings, I guess, users, my ID, uh, PyCharm projects, right? And then my first Django project, and then OK to open it. Okay, do I want to trust it? Yeah. Uh, I probably want to check the box trust projects and PyCharm projects. Okay. And do this window. Open this. Okay. Now, let's take a look at this. Is this configured the way I'd like it to be configured? I don't think it is. Why? Well, because it's using Python 3.9, and I know that's not what I want. Okay? So there's several different ways to pick your uh, configuration to point to the proper virtual env to connect it to that and then pick the other configuration options. One way is to go down here to the right and click on this, whatever it says the interpreter or the virtual environment is. If I click on this, I'll go into the dialog here. And you can see, oh, I can pick E4 Trainer Django course. Let's pick that. Okay, I could do that. so that looks like a good start. Is that all the configuration I need to do though? No, probably not. So one way that you can do configuration that I think is the most reliable is when you're in your Django project in PyCharm, go up to the menu, pick File, and then Settings, and it pops up the dialog for this. And you can find, go down under where it says Project and open that. And the first thing that you need to configure is Python interpreter. Okay. And this looks like the right one, E for Trainer Django course. And it's loading, but I think we're going to see, yeah, we've got Django 4.1, we've got Python 3.10. That's great. Are we done configuring? We're not. Okay. So we also, when we're doing a Django project, we need to go down to languages and frameworks. Okay. And then we need to pick Django. And we have to make sure that things are turned on and connected to the right things. So the first thing is if enable Django support is not checked, like that, you have to check it. All right. Then the Django project root that we're pointing to, this is your project file. This is the one called My First Django Project in PyCharm projects. Okay. We're looking for a configuration file. We'll get used to configuring it. It's called settings.py. It's the Django configuration file. It's a Django configuration file. And it's under that directory that holds the configuration stuff, which as you can see, this is called, that directory is a Django project. I can't click on that because I've got the dialog up. Okay, but it's right under there. So that's the right one to be pointed to. And then the manage script is which manage.py is it running? And it should be just the one that's under our project, and it's pointing to that the right way. So that looks perfect. So I'm just going to click on OK. That's all configured the right way. Now, just to see what's under this Django project, there are a number of configuration files, including settings.py. And we're going to learn how to make changes in that real soon. Okay? Okay, there's that. All right, so here's a project that we didn't start with a PyCharm Professional. You know, we actually generated the project structure at the command line, but we did open it up with a PyCharm Professional and do the configuration. So it's pointed to the properly named virtual env, and it has the right configurations for a Django project. Okay. Now, on that basis, we should be able to go up to the menu, click on Tools, okay, and we want to run this run manage.py task. But you see how it's grayed out? What's going on? Well, look down here at the bottom right. See how it says updating skeletons, and we have kind of a progress bar. Okay, so a part of loading up your virtual environment, as it includes Django, includes loading these files called skeletons. Okay, and it can take a while the first time that you do it. So we can't run this manage.py task until this finishes. All right. And this seems to be going awful slow today. I mean, I've had it go slow, but this seems to be running slow. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video again, and then I'll be back when this has resolved. Okay. Be right back. Okay, so here I am, and I think maybe 3, 4 minutes went by since I paused the video, and I haven't seen any change down here. But I just thought, well, I wonder if this tools link is up here now. And here it is, run manage the .py task. So let's click on that, and it's going to open up, and you can say run server, all one word, enter, enter, and then it runs the server. And there it is, Django 4.1. Okay, so we're not really doing a whole lot in this chapter 1 stuff. We're just installing Django, uh, um, configuring a project very basically, and then starting up the server so we can see that we've got the basic connections in place. Okay. And again, I can stop that. And because I'm in the manage.py um, panel, I can't use a control C, but I can click on the red stop button and that will stop it. Okay. All right. Now, so I've done the chapter 1 stuff. Okay. What you have to hand in is the chapter 5 stuff, right? It probably would be helpful to do uh, something in between. Okay. They're kind of repetitive. Okay. Do you need to do 2, 3, 4, and then 5? I know I did it when I did it the first time, but I found it kind of repetitive. Okay. I would at least do 2. Okay. Then I might try to skip to 4. I don't know. Um, they're repetitive, but he gives you a little bit less of the detail of how to set up a new project each time. So if you jumped right to chapter 5, I think it might be a little terse getting started. Okay, you're just going to have to figure out what works for you. Okay, so when you get your project done, okay, um, you're going to have to zip it up and submit it. Okay, and here's how we're going to do it. Okay, later on when we get to EasyU, you'll be handing in a project that has your name and the name of the project and all that kind of stuff. But for this first assignment, we're just going to be using whatever name uh, Vincent is using for the project. If we go to, if we go to chapter 5, for instance, and we look at this, what does he tell us to call the project? Make a new directory for our code called blog. Okay. Um, create a new Django project called Django project. So I think what's going to happen is when you do chapter 5, you're going to have a project just called block. Okay. And even though that means that everybody's going to hand in a directory of the same name, well, that's okay. I think we'll find a way to accommodate that within the grading. All right. Okay. So how do you hand these things in? Okay. Well, here's what you do. Okay. So let's close our project. Confirm and exit. I do that. Well, let's do this, and then let's go to the File Explorer. Okay. And as I remember our, we go to this PC and then we want to go to the local disk and users, and then we want to go to my home directory. You would be going to yours, right? And then I've got a directory in there called PyCharm projects. Okay. And the one that we just did, I think we just did it on the 21st of January at 3:06. So it was called My First Django Project. How do I submit that? Okay. Well, I just zip it up and I submit the zip file. So how do I do this? Well, here on Windows, I highlight the line, I right click, and I'm trying to remember how we do a compress. Oh, compress to zip file. And it wants to pick the same name, and we'll say, yeah, that's okay. Just press enter, and it says it's compressed or zipped. And then this is the file that you submit to the Canvas activity um, uh, for the assignment. Okay, so uh, again, for chapter 5, your top level directory is probably just going to be called blog. Okay, so everybody's going to be handing in something that's the same. And after you've done your work, right, you're going to go to your home directory and look at PyCharm projects or wherever you're keeping your projects, and it's probably going to be called blog, and uh, you're going to right click on it, and you're going to say compress to zip file. You'll use the same name, and you'll send it in. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. Um, I think that's all you need to know. Okay, so good luck on this. There's a lot to be learned here on your own, and it should be pretty fun. And I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye bye.